a Chinese creation myth that dates back to 600 BC. This is called Pangu, the giant creator, or sometimes it's called, as you can see, Pan. Okay, there's a typo right there. Let me fix that. I'm a perfectionist here. That's supposed to be right here. Okay, so I think, hey, I might have it right. Go back. Panku. So Panku emerged from an egg. So this is their explanation of how the world came to be. This is the Chinese, 600 BC or somewhere around there. This guy emerged from an egg and proceeded to create the world by using a chisel to carve valleys and mountains from the landscape. Next, he set the sun, moon, and stars in the sky. He died as soon as these tasks were finished. The death of the giant creator was an essential part of the creation process because fragments of his own body helped to complete the world. Pangu's skull formed the dome of the sky, his flesh formed the soil, his bones became rocks. Okay, now there's some pseudo spooky stuff right here. But they believe it says the last of his breath pours the wood, the last of his breath pours the wind and clouds. While his seat became rain, his hair fell to earth, creating plant life. And the fleas, I know when they heard about the bubonic plague, that bothered them. The fleas that had lives in his hair provided the basis for the human race. As our birth required the death of our creator, we were to be cursed with sorrow forever. Now, that's some Jesus stuff right there. That's after Abel died, right there. But this was their belief at some point of how things came to be, and it went unchallenged. Okay, nobody dared to challenge that, or death, or some type of scrutiny would come upon them. Now check this one out. This is the Icelandic epic myth. Now I might be pronouncing this wrong. Prose Edda. Creation started not with an egg, but with the yawning gap. Yeah, yawning gap. Yawning gap. This void separated the contrasting realms of Muspel and Niflheim until one day the fiery, bright heat of Muspel melted the freezing snow and ice of Niflheim. So now, as you can know, this is Iceland. So they're talking about melting ice. You dig? So people look at their surroundings and they start to explain how things came to be by their immediate surroundings. So this guy melted the freezing ice, snow of Niflheim, and the moisture fell into the yawning gap, sparking life in the form of Ymir, the giant. Only then could the creation of the world begin. So they were very limited on. They didn't care to go into details. Just believe that or die. You dig? And then now let's go to Africa, West Africa. The Karachi people. If I spelled that correctly, hey, forgive me. I did all this today at work. So there could be a typo here. The Karachi people of Togo in West Africa speak of another giant, the vast blue god Wubari, more familiar to us as the sky. There was a time when he lay just above the earth, but a woman pounding grain with a long timber kept prodding and poking him until he raised himself above the nuisance. However, Wubari was still within reach of humans, who use his belly as a towel. Again, a spooky story. And snatched bits of his blue body to add spice to their soup. Gradually, Wubari moved higher and higher until the sky was out of reach, where it has remained ever since. So that was it on that spooky story in West Africa.
I like that one.
Now, check this one out. Don't challenge it though, you're gonna cut your head off. So for the Yoruba, also of West Africa, Olurun was owner of the sky, another sky daddy. When he looked down upon the lifeless marsh, he asked another divine being to take a snail shell down to the primeval soil. The soil was sprinkled on the marshes of the earth. whereupon the hen and the pigeon began scratching and picking at it until the marsh became solid ground. To test the world, Oleron sent down the chameleon, which turned from blue to brown as it moved from the sky to land, signaling that the hen and the pigeon had completed their task successfully. Okay, so that's the West African Oleron, however you pronounce it. Very spooky, right? Nothing to do with science at all. Throughout the world, every culture has developed its own myths about the origin of the universe and how it was shaped. These creation myths differ magnificently, each reflecting the environment and society from which it originated. In Iceland, it is the volcanic and meteorological forces that form the backdrop to the birth of Ymir. But according to the Yoruba of West Africa, it is the familiar hen and pigeon that give rise to solid land. Nevertheless, all these unique creation myths have some features in common, whether it is in the big blue bruised Bubari or the dying giant of China. These myths inevitably invoke at least one supernatural being to play a crucial role in explaining the creation of the universe. So they all had a supernatural being, which would contradict science. Okay, so here we go. Also, every myth represents the absolute truth within its society. The word myth is derived from the Greek word mythos, which can mean story, but also means word in the sense of the final word. Indeed, anybody who dared to question these explanations would have laid themselves open to accusations of heresy. Nothing much changed until the 6th century BC. So nothing changed until the 6th century BC, when there was a sudden outbreak of tolerance among the intelligentsia. For the very first time, it says very first time, that means nothing before here, philosophers were free to abandon accepted mythological explanations of the universe and develop their own theories. Okay, so this is not African people now or Chinese people who ran from the traditional belief and challenged it. These are white folks. For example, Anaximander of Miletus or Malthus argued that the sun was a hole in a fire-filled ring that encircled the earth and revolved around it. Similarly, he believed that the moon and stars were nothing more than holes in the firmament, revealing otherwise hidden fires. Alternatively, here's a new one. Alternatively, Xenophanes of Colinphone believed that the earth exuded combustible gases that accumulated at night until they reached a critical mass and ignited, thereby creating the sun. Night fell again when the ball of gas had burned out, leaving behind just a few sparks that we call stars. He explained the moon in a similar way, with gases developing and burning over a 28-day cycle. Okay, so now there's a big difference between how they explain things to be from the Chinese and Eurobos and the West Africans. The fact that Xenophanes and Anaximander were not very close to the truth is unimportant, because the real point is that they were developing theories that explain the natural world without responding to supernatural devices or deity. You see, there was a Greek myth that explained the sun by invoking a fiery chariot driven across the sky by the god of Helios. So that was spooky stuff going on in Greece. However, some Greek philosophers refused to believe that it was divine meddling that was responsible for natural phenomena. So the Greeks challenged their spookiness. These philosophers were the first cosmologists, and as much they were interested in the scientific study of the physical universe and its origins. The word cosmology is derived from the ancient Greek word kosmio, which means to order or to organize, reflecting the belief that the universe could be understood and is worthy of analytical study. The cosmos had patterns, and it was the ambition of the Greeks to recognize these patterns to scrutinize them and to understand what was behind them. Now check this one out. This is a name that some of you know. As part of Pythagoras of Samos philosophy around 540 BC, he developed a passion for mathematics. And what did he do with mathematics? He demonstrated how numbers and equations could be used to formulate scientific theories. He didn't care about that spooky stuff. He went with what was applicable, which is math. One of his first breakthroughs was to explain the harmony of music via the harmony of numbers. Okay? Pythagoras developed his theory by experimenting with the single string monochord. Once Pythagoras had shown that mathematics could be used to help explain and describe music, subsequent generations of scientists used numbers to explore everything from the trajectory of a cannonball to chaotic weather patterns that we have right now, our weather stations. Mathematics did that. Pythagoras tried to find the mathematical rules that govern the heavenly bodies. He argued that the movement of the sun, moon, and planets across the sky generated a particular musical note, which were determined by the lengths of their orbits. Therefore, Pythagoras concluded these orbits and notes had to have some specific numerical proportions for the universe to be in harmony. Okay, it's getting a little spooky. According to Pythagoras, we are constantly bathed in his hypothetical heavenly music, but we cannot perceive it because we have been hearing it since birth and have become habituated to it. See, that's that foolproof explanation. That's that religious stuff right there. Ultimately, any theory that predicts a music that can never be heard or anything else can never be detected, that spook guy, is a poor scientific theory. So it says ultimately, any theory that predicts something that can never be detected is a poor scientific theory. Okay? So it says, let me get the man down here. Hey, stop that. Oh, what is this?
Sure, your evolution will fall in that category.
So it's just Pythagoras right here. You better have going. It says every genuine scientific theory must make a prediction. So hey, hold up, hold your horses. Every genuine scientific theory must make a prediction. Evolution makes a prediction. It says make a prediction about the universe that can be observed or measured. So evolution falls in that category. If the results of an experiment or observation match the theoretical prediction, this is a good reason why the theory might become accepted and then incorporated into a grander scientific framework. Before any celestial distances or sizes could be calculated, the ancient Greeks first had to establish the Earth is a sphere. The view gained acceptance in ancient Greece as philosophers became familiar with the notion that ships gradually disappear over the horizon until only the tip of the mast could be seen. This made sense only if the surface of the sea curves and falls away. If the sea has a curved surface, then presumably so too does the Earth, which means it's probably a sphere. That was it.
Bravo.
So what did you just prove?
So I proved that it wasn't until the Greeks when they started to challenge the mythos that they were supposed to accept as fact.
Just showing when the Greeks started to challenge their own mythos and then decided to alternatively explain their creation stories by natural phenomena. You know, they start to talk about the gases and fire. They no longer was mentioning supernatural beings, giants, and all that God stuff. So that was just the point of that. Prior to that, every other race, country, people were teaching a creation story with supernatural beings. And we had gave you three examples, well, four, and those examples were based upon where you lived at. The people in Iceland talked about ice. We talked about, I think that was West Africa, where they talked about the pigeons. So everybody explained the world from their perspective, you know, exactly what was going around in their environment. The Greeks decided enough was enough and tried to explain it with nature because they no longer believed that this God theory was responsible for the heavens and earth. So that was the start of it. And then from there, you start to get all type of theories in Greece, and then the Romans, and then Galileo and everybody else. And now, and do you know that they didn't even challenge um, God creating the earth until Galileo's time? Like they will have competing theories, but it wasn't like something that was and something that was had to be proven. They actually dodged that one because that was a death sentence. So they were just trying to prove the earth was round, the sun was in the center of the universe, things like that. But that's it.